50 years after the events of the final Harry Potter books, and Harry Potter is now headmaster of Hogwarts, ready to usher in a brand new generation of witches and wizards. My name's Radio Mike, and I love Harry Potter. In fact, I love Harry Potter so much that when I was a kid, I wrote an entire series of fan fiction books based on Hogwarts. This is book 1 in that series. Welcome to Harry Potter and the Boys. Hello everyone and welcome to Harry Potter and the Boys. Possibly the first ever Harry Potter fan fiction podcast. I don't know. Now that I think about it, there definitely is probably another one somewhere. My name is Radio Mike, and this is a spin-off podcast of my original podcast, 20th Century Boy. I'll get a little bit more into that later. At first, I want to tell you who I am, what I do, and why this podcast exists. I am Radio Mike. As I said already, I do a podcast called 20th Century Boy, as I said already, and I am a writer, producer, and podcaster from here in Melbourne, Australia. I have been making shows and things for a very long, well, not a very long time, like maybe 5 or 6 years now. And yeah, I'm also a huge pop culture nerd. In fact, just a general huge nerd, like just across the board. I just like all nerdy kind of things. And I guess that's why, I guess that's what brings us here today. That's what brings us and you here to the Harry Potter and the Boys podcast, a fan fiction podcast by Radio Mike. When I was young, I wrote Harry Potter fan fiction, and it all started when I would have been in grade 3 or grade 4 with a few of my friends at school. Every lunchtime, instead of playing down ball or footy or basketball or just playing on the playground, we would sit outside the canteen and hand write in a book, because that was, computers weren't that big at that time. And we would handwrite in an exercise book, a Harry Potter fan fiction book called Harry Potter and the Boys. And what happened was we ended up writing 2 books over lunchtime, and we would read them to the class every Friday. And as someone who now kind of works in comedy to a degree and has an interest in comedy production, I realize now, when I was reading the book Harry Potter and the Boys, which essentially was a parody of Harry Potter, it was a quirky, funny 8-year-old's version of what Harry Potter could be. While I was reading that to the class and people were laughing and responding to what was happening, that was kind of my first experience of performing something and people finding it funny. And I look back on that and realize that a lot of my job now involves storytelling and writing and comedy, and that's always been kind of a trend in my life, starting with this book. A little bit more on me, I have worked on shows such as Willosophy with Will Anderson. I have worked on the Hamish and Andy podcast, as well as the Luke and Lewis podcast, and many more, including the Chaser Report. And yeah, what happened after those lunchtime sessions? Okay, so when I was in year 7, I found the exercise book, and this is 2007, so we're going back 13 years from the day I'm recording this. When I was in year 7 at high school, I found the exercise book, the original exercise book to Harry Potter and the Boys, all handwritten, and I read it and found it hilarious when I was 13. So I decided to convert it and immortalize it on my computer. And on Microsoft Word, I wrote up the entire book and expanded on certain bits and just continued working on it. And over the next few years, wrote a series of 7 Harry Potter fan fiction books, the first of which was Harry Potter and the Boys, which I am going to be reading on this podcast for you. Now, for those of you who have come over from 20th Century Boy, my other podcast, I did read this book, the first 10 to 15 chapters of this book on that podcast last year, and then everyone really, really liked it. It was kind of like My Dad Wrote a Porno, but for Harry Potter. and I decided to make it a spin-off podcast. So I have been promising this podcast for a very long time, and it's finally in the works. I'm finally recording it. About a month ago, I tried to record this exact episode. I sat here for about half an hour and did this exact episode. And then when I finished recording, I realized I didn't have the mic plugged in and nothing recorded, and that put me off it for a while. I've been putting it off for a long time, but I feel like it's finally time for us to revisit Harry Potter and the Boys and read it through from start to finish over the next however many weeks. I believe this first book in my series of Harry Potter fanfiction goes for about 300 pages. There are about 25 chapters, and although it is a parody and, you know, it's quite funny and quirky and there's a lot of Deus Ex Machina and random stuff, you know, resolving itself without, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is the writing is certainly not up to scratch. There is kind of a good story that formulates amongst all the nonsense, and I really enjoyed getting to know that. So we're going to start back from chapter 1, and just for some context on the book, which you will learn as we read the book, but just for some context, it's set 50 years after the events of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and Harry Potter is now the headmaster of Hogwarts, so I guess it follows a slightly different canon to the original Harry Potter canon, alongside other teachers including Hermione, Ron, Neville, and I think Seamus Finnegan pops in at some point as well. So a lot of those legacy Harry Potter characters are now teachers at Hogwarts, and this is set around the boys, a new group of wizards who are starting at Hogwarts in their first year this year. One of them is called Michael. He's the main one, and he is based on me, I assume. And the others are based on various people that I went to primary school with that were around when I was writing the book. So I hope none of them care. I've changed a few of the names, but predominantly, this is how it was written. This is how the book was written when I was in year 7. So it is this is me reading something that I wrote in year 7 that was a rewriting and adaptation of something I wrote with friends when I was about 8 years old in grade 2, 3, and 4 or something like that. It is a bit of a mess, but yeah, that is the premise of this podcast. That's what it's going to be. I'm going to hopefully get some guests on to read chapters with me and read through Harry Potter and the Boys with me and see what they think of this crazy kid's writing. But this first one will be solo. We are about to go into chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Boys. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you are ready to have a laugh for various different reasons, including poor writing, but some glimpses of comedic prowess, if I do say so myself. So, without further ado, let's get the book open. It's saved as a PDF file on my MacBook Pro here. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to read it, and yeah. Okay, so I certainly put a lot of effort into this when I was young, because the Harry Potter font is used as the front cover of the book, and it says Harry Potter and the Boys by Michael Liberali. That's me, now known as Radio Mike. The second page of this book has a Gryffindor logo and a Hogwarts logo. And this is like the preface to the book. You know how some books are like, oh, dedicated to my beautiful wife, who I love more every day. Stuff like that. This one says this, Harry Potter and the Boys, dedicated to no one. This book was begun on the 15th of April, 2007. And this book was completed on the 19th of May, 2007. So we've got pretty much a month turnaround to type this book up and make it a full thing. So a month of work went into this 13 years ago. And then it says, Harry Potter names, characters, and related indicia are copyright and trademarked by Warner Brothers. I assume I felt like I had to do that because I was scared I'd get into some kind of copyright issues, which was frankly never going to happen because some 13-year-old kid from Melbourne wrote a Harry Potter parody and was reading it out to kids in his class. And finally, on this front page, it says, funnily, you know how, yeah, I'll just read it. It says, this book is entirely non-fictional. Any similarities to you is completely intentional. So I guess that was me trying to poke fun of the thing where it's like, this movie/book is entirely fictional. Any similarities to real people is entirely coincidental. But I went the opposite route. Apparently this book is totally non-fictional, and any similarities to specifically you is completely intentional. So, I don't know, that maybe gives you a vibe for what this book is going to be, but let's start with Chapter 1, The Letters from Someone. And right off the bat, this, I believe, is a parody of the first, or no, it must be the second chapter of the first Harry Potter film, which is called The Letters from No One. Obviously about Harry receiving all the letters from Hogwarts at the Dursleys' house. So The Letters from Someone is our first chapter, and it starts like this. As you all know, Lord Voldemort is an evil, dark sorcerer. So not often does a book directly address its audience in the first line by saying, as you all know. So it's already pretty interesting. As you all know, so it assumes, I guess this book assumes knowledge from you, the reader. It assumes that you are familiar with the Harry Potter lore and the Harry Potter world. As you all know, Lord Voldemort is an evil, dark sorcerer. And then it says, he was killed in the 7th book. So one of the things I do remember, because I don't remember much when I was reading it on my other podcast, but one of the things I do remember really standing out is that this book is very self-referential. So often the narrator will become a character, you'll see that happen, and also the narrator references, and sometimes the characters break the fourth wall and reference the fact that they are aware that they are in a book. They are aware that this is a book, and I really like that style of humor. And I think young Mike was really channeling into that at the time. So he was killed in the 7th book. But in this book, 55 years have passed since that faithful day, faithful, and I believe that should say fateful, not faithful, but that's just me in year 7 not knowing the difference between faithful and fateful, but it would be the fateful day where Harry Potter defeated Lord Voldemort. And then it says, well, actually, it was kind of fucked up, since Harry didn't even kill Voldemort in the end anyway. No, it was kind of fucked up since Harry didn't even kill Voldemort in the end, but anyway, Harry is now headmaster of his school, Hogwarts. So I think I remember reading the last Harry Potter book and not quite understanding what happened, because I think it's weird because Harry and Voldemort both cast spells at each other, and then the Elder Wand rejects, I can't even remember now, does it reject Voldemort because it's not his true master? Harry was the true master, so the Elder Wand reflects the spell back at him, and Voldemort kind of kills himself inadvertently because of the wand. So I think that's me trying to get my head around that. And then it says, there are now 6 boys named Michael, Rob, Lockie, Luke, Sam, and Tom. This year, they will be starting their first year at Hogwarts. And already you can see how low detailed this book is. Like, I don't think J.K. Rowling ever wrote anything like there were 3 people named Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and they were starting their first year at Hogwarts. But we've now met 6 characters, and in one paragraph, in 2 sentences, we have met 2 characters: Michael, Rob, Lockie, Luke, Sam, and Tom, and they are going to be starting their first year at Hogwarts. Noticeably, no female representation in the book so far. It's early days, but considering I went to an all-boys school, for whatever reason, I think that the female representation in this book is unfortunately going to be not too strong. And then it goes on. Of course, every story needs a stupid, strange, idiotic loser character. That seems horribly abusive from the narrator. Then it goes, some examples of these would be Neville Longbottom and Ralph Wiggum. And in this story, that person's name is Derek. And unfortunately, he will also be starting his first year at Hogwarts. Little did he know that it would be a very eventful year. So we're now introduced to our 7th character in 4 sentences. His name is Derek, and he's an idiot, loser, strange, stupid character that is akin to Ralph Wiggum. I had some artwork made up of Harry Potter and the Boys. Derek is on the artwork. He has his wand up his nose, so go and have a look at that to get a picture of how he looks. Michael Carmichael was the 5th of 12 children. So this is Michael Carmichael, who is based on me, I believe. Michael Carmichael was the fifth of 12 children, so he clearly comes from a very, very big family. He got his letter to Hogwarts one day at about 1:33 p.m. and 59 seconds. Oddly specific that the narrator knows the exact time, exact to the second when he received his Hogwarts letter. I think this was me trying to poke fun of like some books that got into like excruciating detail about things, but I don't know. He read it as soon as it arrived in his mail. I got it, he yelled. I got it. He had been checking the mail over and over for the past 6 months, and it was really starting to piss off the family. I like, you really don't expect to have much cursing in a Harry Potter book, but I feel like this book is rife with F-bombs, possibly a C-bomb, and lower level swears as well. So he's been checking the mail over and over, and it's really starting to piss off his family. As soon as the family heard that he had finally received his letter, they all sang Hallelujah in perfect 4-part harmony. So the 12 siblings sung Hallelujah in a perfect 4-part harmony. I don't believe this is not the Jeff Buckley Hallelujah. This is the Catholic Hallelujah. They're like Hallelujah. So the family hears that he gets his letter. They all start singing in a 4-part harmony Hallelujah, and then we continue. Unfortunately, Michael's parents died when he was very young, just like Harry Potter's. But he had 11 siblings, and they all lived in a large house in the middle of nowhere. That sounds extremely strange and ambiguous as to how they finance all these children in the large house in the middle of nowhere. But anyway, Michael and his 11 siblings all crowded around the letter. All right. And then this is now the letter that they are reading. Hogwarts. It just says the letter starts with Hogwarts. And then it says Headmaster, Harry Potter. And it goes on. Also, Head of Stupidity and Head of Giving Head. That's something that every year 7 would find funny, but I still find that funny. So at some point, Harry Potter, who is now the headmaster of Hogwarts, is also the head of stupidity of Hogwarts. And to top it off, in a mad trilogy, he is the head of Giving Head. Harry Potter is now the head of Sucking Dick at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Don't ask how he got there, but apparently he is. In this book, in this timeline of the Harry Potter franchise, Harry Potter, the namesake of the entire series, is now the head of Giving Head. He is the head of blowjobs. That's great for Harry. Well done, Harry. And then it says defeater/defeatee of Voldemort. Okay. Dear Mr. Carmichael, we are proud to inform you that you have a place at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on 1st of September. We await your owl by no later than the 31st of July. Yours sincerely, Hermione Granger, Deputy Headmistress. So Hermione is now the Deputy Headmistress / Headmaster. Deputy Headmistress sounds kind of weird, but I think that is a proper term. Hermione, and I believe from memory of this, and I just to reiterate, I don't really remember what happens towards the second half. I kind of remember the first half because I reread it on my other podcast, but I don't really remember where this ends up going, but I recall that Hermione is sort of the intelligent voice of reason, whereas Harry has become a total crackpot. Continuing on. Rob Robson also received his letter on the same day. He lived next door to Michael, which is interesting. This is now not part of the book. That's interesting because it did say that Michael and his 11 siblings live in a big house in the middle of nowhere, but I guess it's not the middle of nowhere if Rob Robson lives there as well. They both ran outside to show each other. Like Michael, Rob also had a large family, but his parents had also passed away. This is quite foreboding, and it's also a nice, very similar backstory. The two main characters have a very similar backstory to Harry Potter. Neither of the boys knew how they died. And then it says, Rob was the 643rd of 844 brothers and sisters. So Rob really comes from a big family. He's got 844 brothers and sisters, and he's 643rd. So he's towards the end of the cohort of the Robson family, which is very, very big. And who knows, like the parent. So that's pretty crazy actually, because if you think about it, Rob's starting Hogwarts, so he'd be 11 years old. Both of his parents are dead, which means that he's the 643rd. There's 844, which means that there's 201 siblings under the age of 11. Which I guess any parents listening would know would be bloody crazy, wouldn't it? Some of his brothers and sisters had graduated from Hogwarts. You'd bloody well hope so. He's got 600 siblings. Luke Lucas and Lockie Lockhart, in brackets, it says, who was adopted. Very, very in-your-face exposition by Year 7 Mike. Lockie Lockhart, who was adopted. Like, you talk about Chekhov's gun in fiction about how anything that appears in a book has to be relevant later in the book, or anything that appears in fiction should be relevant later. Like, if there's a gun in the background of a scene, that gun should be used in the movie. Well, this is just planting seeds. Lockie Lockhart, who was adopted. Like, why do we specifically need to know that information now? There are so many other ways you could exposit that, but we've just decided to dump it straight on you. Lockie Lockhart is adopted. Keep that in mind. He also received his letter that day, and Sam Thompson also received their letters that same day. Luke Lucas and Lockie Lockhart, who was adopted, also received his letter that day. And Sam Thompson also received their letters that same day. Terrible sentence in so many different ways that I won't begin to unpack, but I'm sure you know. Loving our characters. Michael Carmichael, Rob Robson, Luke Lucas, Lockie Lockhart, Sam Thompson. Really, really great character naming there. Easy to remember all their names as well, which is great. They were all proud of each other and gave each other a clap. So they're all just standing there, giving each other a clap. Well done, guys. We got into Hogwarts, guys. Great job. And when they had finished clapping, when they had finished clapping, this happened. And then the next page says in italic font, meanwhile, in the next street down. So already I have several problems. Again, we did say that Michael Carmichael lives in a big house in the middle of nowhere, yet all of these boys seem to live within walking distance of each other because they're all standing outside giving each other a clap. And then in the next street down, someone else lives. So meanwhile, in the next street down, a boy named Derek had also received his letter today. He was an intelligent boy, in brackets, at the moment, so that's a bit foreboding as well. We're really planting lots of little seeds here, just trying to figure out what's going to happen, because Derek is an intelligent boy at the moment. Makes me think something is going to happen to throw off that intelligence, possibly. He was an intelligent boy, and he was a single child. His parents were wizards as well, so he wasn't a mudblood. Wow. That is chapter 1 of Harry Potter and the Boys. All wrapped up for you there, and so many questions. Obviously a very formative chapter, like trying to set up, I think I did a good job with this. Like, I tried to set up where we are in the Harry Potter timeline. We're 55 years. I think I said 50 at the start. We're 55 years past the fateful day. We introduced to, I assume, our core characters, the boys, Michael, Rob, Lockie, Luke, Sam, and Tom, as well as Derek, who may or may not be part of the boys, and setting up a few mysteries in this chapter as well. Michael and Rob's parents are both dead. They also both come from exceptionally strong families. Harry Potter is now the head of Giving Head at Hogwarts, as well as the headmaster. And I assume Sam Thompson are brothers then. Lots of terrible sentence structure, and seems to be setting up a lot to this Derek character, who I believe is definitely one of the central characters in the book moving forward. That is chapter 1, The Letters from Someone. And here's what I want to do. Like, this podcast will come out weekly. There will be a new episode every week where we will generally go through one chapter of the book and have some discussion points. I would love for you guys to contribute to the podcast. If you've listened to my other podcast, 20th Century Boy, I love listener contributions. So you can get in touch with the show at any time. Email me, radiomikepod, P-O-D, @gmail.com. Email me anything. Also, if you would like to leave a voice message, you can do so. Leave a voice message, just record it on your phone, attach it to an email, send it to radiomikepod @gmail.com. And yeah, that would be the best way to get in touch. Any of your thoughts? What did you think was the funniest moment? What do you think's going to happen in chapter 2? What do you think the answers are to some of these mysteries? Any contribution you have, I would love to have on the show next week for the second episode, for the second chapter, which is called Chapter 2, The Second Chapter. And I'm really looking forward to finally getting to do this podcast regularly, getting it out there, finishing the story. If you like my shows, go to radiomike.com.au is my website. You can see a bunch of my other stuff there. You can get in touch with the show there as well. There's a contact page. You can also follow me on Instagram, radio.mike. I'll hopefully be posting some clips of me reading the book and responding and stuff like that. So stay tuned for that coming soon. And finally, I think that's actually it. That is it for the very first episode of Harry Potter and the Boys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will join me next week. I hope you will check out 20th Century Boy as well and any of my other work. Otherwise, I really appreciate you listening. Thank you so much. Have an incredible day/night. And my name's been Radio Mike. This has been The Inside of My Mind.